Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to offer my contribution to the 2019 budget debate. The budget was presented under the theme, transforming the economy, empowering the people, building sustained communities for the good life. Mr. Speaker, quite a lot of things stood out when I listened to the Honorable Minister of Finance presentation 2 Mondays ago. While beating his chest at the total amount given so far to our senior citizens since taking office, government has decided that old age pension would be increased by $1,000. For argument's sake, let's admit that the pension since the exit of the PPPC administration from office has increased. In the midst of such increases, however, how can the government justify a $1,000 increase in 2019? This merge increase has raised the money that would be available to pensioners to $20,500. Is this livable, taking into consideration the rising cost of living? Mr. Speaker, I'm asking you this for those pensioners who have no other means of income. Can the person who has utility bills to pay, probably medical bills, and still has to feed, clothe, and house themselves survive on that? Mr. Speaker, can I or any other member of this House survive on this amount of money? This is just disrespectful and an insult to the senior citizens of this country. $1,000 is the cost for a return taxi fare in the city. $1,000 can only buy 3 loaves of bread. $1,000 can only buy 2 packets of milk. $1,000 cannot even buy a whole chicken. $20,500 in this day and age is grossly inadequate. I wish to implore the Honorable Minister of Finance through you, sir, to consider the plight of our senior citizens and restore the water and electricity subvention which the pensioners enjoyed under the PPPC administration. Mr. Speaker, during his presentation, the Honorable Minister said, and I quote, "The government has embarked upon the preparation of a national policy on aging, which is expected to facilitate societal integration and allow for added participation of this group in the development process," end of quote. There is no doubt, Mr. Speaker, that millions will be spent on creating this policy, after which it will take months or even years to be made public, and then another lengthy time before it is implemented. What is so important at this stage about developing such a policy for the elderly? I don't understand that concept, and I'm sure the elderly themselves don't get where the government plans to go with this. What our senior citizens need is more money in their pockets, easy access to proper health care, and the ability to enjoy their remaining years on this earth in a secure and comfortable environment. They too, Mr. Speaker, want to get in on the good life. It would be remiss of me, Mr. Speaker, if I did not focus some of my attention on the youths of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, $1.7 billion is being proposed for various youth initiatives in 2019. The coalition government says boldly that the youth is our future. On page 73 of his presentation, the Honorable Minister of Finance states, and I quote, "We have crafted a holistic program to accentuate their independence and patriotism and to empower them to use their creativity and entrepreneurial spirit," end of quote. It is a fact, Mr. Speaker, that youths everywhere are complaining about the lack of jobs. Nowhere in his budget presentation does the Minister of Finance allude to this and how government intends to effectively deal with this. Not all youths possess the entrepreneurial spirit, and as such, this coalition government has to tell us how it intends to make this happen. The Honorable Minister spoke about the Youth Innovation Project of Guyana, which is aimed at fostering a green economy. The mere fact, as stated by him, that 271 proposals for project implementation were received speaks volumes. It is either this area is not of much interest to young people, or only a selected few are being engaged. Out of this number, only 30 have qualified to receive funding, totaling $45 million, which in itself is even more telling. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Honorable Minister is, what has happened to the 241 remaining proposals? Wouldn't it be wise to create more projects in other areas of interest so that more youths can have access to funding? After all, Guyana does not have several hundreds of youths. There are tens of thousands, most of whom do have a desire to contribute to the development of Guyana. Mr. Speaker, I would now like to focus my attention on government's plans for Destination Guyana, and to a lesser extent, some aspects of the education sector. Earlier this year, Mr. Speaker, there was encouraging news that Guyana has recorded the highest increased growth rates in the tourism sector in the Caribbean region during the first half of 2018. According to the October 6, 2018 edition of the Guyana Chronicle, Secretary General of the Caribbean Tourism Organization, during a conference in the Bahamas, disclosed that Guyana recorded 18.3% growth rate, followed by Belize at 17.1% and the Cayman Islands at 15.9%. 22 reporting destinations were assessed, and out of this number, 13, including Guyana, registered increases in growth, the newspaper reported. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister responsible for tourism yesterday came before this House and provided data which suggests that this growth has decreased. He came with a lot of fluff and attempted to paint a glowing image of a thriving tourism sector. The Honorable Minister said, and I quote, "Visitor arrivals have been rising steadily over the years, with the figures for up to September of this year showing an increase of 17% over the same period last year," end of quote. This means, Mr. Speaker, that instead of a steady rise, Guyana is facing a decline in the number of visitors. Interestingly, the decline occurred during what one would describe as the peak season. The minister claims that the additional arrival of some 30,000 visitors this year have pumped approximately $15 million US dollars into the economy. He said too that in total, tourism will bring in around $150 million US dollars this year. Mr. Speaker, this figure is a joke compared to countries that have managed to successfully tap into the tourism market. Figures out of Jamaica showed that in 2016 alone, the island welcomed close to 4 million tourists. Visitors, with a visitor expenditure of over $2.5 billion. Barbados receives approximately 1 million visitors annually and is said to be the #1 destination in the region for visitors from the UK. According to the Barbados Tourism Investment Inc., the island's tourism product will receive an injection of over $1 billion US dollars in tourism investment through to 2019. These, Mr. Speaker, are impressive figures. According to the August 24, 2018 edition of the Kaieteur News, almost 11,000 Trinidadians departed Guyana up to the end of July, making them the top regional visitors to Guyana for the first half of 2018. I would like to see, Mr. Speaker, the figures for those visitors coming from the UK, North America, South America, and even Asia. That is how we will be able to measure our success rates in promoting Destination Guyana. I call on the Honorable Minister to convince us that behind gold and rice, tourism brings in the highest amount of foreign earning. Backpedal to last Monday, Mr. Speaker, when the Honorable Minister of Finance in his budget presentation dedicated 4 paragraphs to tourism. For 2019, A total of 398 million is being set aside for tourism. 305 million for the Guyana Tourism Authority and 93 million for the Department of Business, which is a part of the Ministry of Business. According to the Honorable Minister, there will be 1, the introduction of a tax-free credit equal to 75% of income and corporate taxes payable on profits from tourism activities for persons investing in regions 1, 7, 8, and 9. 1, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 2, hotels in these same regions benefiting from the proposed amendments to the Income Tax Act and the Income Tax in Aid of Industry Act. That will allow the grant of wear and tear and initial allowances on hotel buildings. 3, exemption from the payment of import duties and excise taxes, motor buses with 12 or more seats not exceeding 4 years old, purchased and used exclusively for the transportation of tourists anywhere in Guyana. According to the December 1st, 2018 edition of the Starbuck News, Raman McRae, rightly so, in its analysis of the 2019 national budget, was not impressed with the measures outlined by the Honorable Minister. Raman McRae made it clear, Mr. Speaker, that there was no rationale for adding Region 10 to those listed to benefit from tax credit other than, and I quote, it being a politically beneficial move, end of quote. Additionally, it was said that this measure does not attract new investments in the tourism industry. The review also pointed out the absence of the qualifying conditions for this tax. Honorable Minister, I call on you to clarify these issues and also to tell us how these proposals are expected to make Guyana a rival to Jamaica, Barbados, the Bahamas, or the other top Caribbean tourist spots. First off, motor buses is not the only mode of transportation for visitors. There are trips which will require boats, ATVs, and Land Rovers. Some tourists may want to bike around the city, looking at various spots, or ride along a trail at a resort. It would be more thoughtful for government to make proposals for all modes of transportation so that all categories of tourist operators can benefit. In 2020, Guyana is expected to pump first oil. As that time approaches, many conferences, workshops, meetings, and other oil-related forums are being held in Guyana, mostly in the city. Why not tap into this group? One expects that governments will collaborate with the organizers of these forums to get participants to Kaieteur Falls, into the savannas in Region 9, to the creeks along the Linden-Soos-Dyke Highway, the Blue Lakes in Linden, bird watching, or a day trip up the Essequibo River. All of these will no doubt promote Destination Guyana. Guyana has the potential for destination weddings, food tourism, sports tourism, adventure tourism, and the development of the bird watching industry, given its ideal geographic placement, beautiful scenery, and an atmosphere of adventure, calm, and relaxation. There are many small tour operators who need assistance to develop their ideas. This budget does not offer any help to them. Also, there is need for development of the hospitality industry. Top-of-the-line customer service is a key ingredient to tourism. No tourist wants to encounter a rude waitress or an untidy-looking tour operator or even reckless bus operators. I must stress, Mr. Speaker, that first impression counts. I would suggest that government provide support to the hospitality industry, whether it is to hotels, restaurants, or those companies offering tours, to polish up the skills of employees. Unless the coalition administration adopts a serious approach to tourism in all its forms, treating it like a business and a key contributor to the development of this country, Guyana will always be 10 steps behind. I now turn my attention to education. Mr. Speaker, I wish to state that I concur with a statement made by the Honorable Minister of Finance on page 68 of his presentation, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, education is not only about the past and present, but it is also the bridge that connects us to the future. For this reason, Mr. Speaker, we will intensify the revision of our school's curricula from nursery to grade 9 while addressing teacher training. End of quote.
Honourable Member, you have 5 minutes remaining.
Thank you, sir. I wish to ask through you, sir, what does the Honorable Minister mean by intensifying the revision of our school's curricula? Mr. Speaker, I would like the Honorable Minister to provide clarity with specifics. Being cognizant of the fact that education is an important vehicle for the success of any nation, I wish to ask through you, sir, when will the first draft be available? Mr. Speaker, I ask the Honorable Minister these questions, even against the background that education is not a quick fix, but at the same time, Mr. Speaker, as a teacher of long standing, I would like the Guyanese children to be spared the long wait for this envisioned modern curricula. I wish to suggest, Mr. Speaker, that the Honorable Minister consider adopting the CARICOM Human Resource Development Strategy. I wish to focus a little of my attention on teachers training at the Cyril Porter College of Education. The quality of teachers entering the profession needs to be critically assessed, as there is need for improvement in this regard. If this is to be realized, then the current problems experienced by teacher trainees must be seriously addressed. Topmost on the list of concerns, according to reports from teachers who are in training, is non-attendance of lecturers, which will no doubt hamper the professional development of these trainees. Another area of concern among the students, Mr. Speaker, is the unavailability of the relevant support learning materials, for example, modules, which can serve as a backup to knowledge. It is my view, Mr. Speaker, that the Cyril Porter College of Education must use every means necessary to inspire the teachers under its wings to strive for higher ideals in terms of knowledge, character development, and dissemination of knowledge. This should be a prime hallmark of the college. Mr. Speaker, it is clear that if our teachers are not adequately trained to function in a professional manner within the classroom, then quality learning will not take place. The Honorable Minister of Finance on page 69 of the budget presentation states that, and I quote, the performance of our children in the public school system must improve substantially if we are to truly build a nation of productive and cohesive communities, end of quote. Mr. Speaker, it is my opinion that there needs to be a stronger link between the Ministry of Education and the schools. There is need for a stronger and more committed cadre of education officials who are seriously desirous of transforming the lives of our young people and who are prepared to support teachers in every way possible. Teachers must not be subjected to countless workshops which take away valuable class time from their students. The Ministry of Education is rightly so conducting a number of diagnostic tests with the aim of identifying the weaknesses and challenges of pupils in literacy and numeracy. However, individual weaknesses within schools in particular regions are not known because analyses are very vague and as such proper intervention cannot be made. In concluding, Mr. Speaker, I wish to state that Guyana has the potential to become a superpower. Investing heavily in the sectors that will put Guyana on a path that will make this a reality is a must. Government cannot afford shortcoming in these areas. Mistakes are being made repeatedly, and rigid efforts must be made now to correct them before it is too late. Mr. Speaker, First Oil represents an opportunity for Guyana to blossom, and I can only hope and pray that this coalition government does not squander this golden opportunity. There is no time for making reckless statements which will cause division and tension. Instead, senior members of this government should be spending their time constructively and in so doing, come up with ideas that would transform Guyana into the country that we all want it to be. Mr. Speaker, we all want to experience the good life. I thank you.